Okay, welcome to the State of the Game podcast. Um, Today we have my co-host Jerry Hood. Jerry, good to see you.
Good to see you, Coach. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, and also today's guest is Coach Terry Curtis, a longtime head coach and athletic director at UMS Wright in Mobile. He has over, gosh, he's coached over decades, 36 years as a head coach. He finished with an overall record of 361, 105, which, gosh, I can't even get my brain wrapped around that, and eight state titles and 26 years at UMS Wright, which is unbelievable. And he's been in retirement over the last year. We'll talk about how that's gone. But anyway, he has served on the Central Board of Control for, I guess, a decade now, and he's the acting president. But the significant thing about Coach Curtis is he was one of two dissenting votes on the restructuring of championship play, which basically led to the split in public and private schools. And we'll get to that in just a second. But first of all, Coach Curtis, first of all, this. It was great to see you last week at the ALFCA convention. Awesome to see you. But I want to know the big question. First question, most of all, is did you behave yourself?
Oh, of course. And, that's just kind of the highlight of the whole year. And I think you guys will agree. The speakers were outstanding. We had a top-notch deal the whole week. But even that is watching coaches interact and network and talk in that hallway there at the Embassy Suites. That's one of the best parts to me. And also me doing that to see guys from North Alabama, Central Alabama, who I don't see a whole lot of during the year, and to renew that, see how they're doing, see how their families are doing. So it just makes it just an awesome event, and one that I would recommend head coaches, assistant coaches, coaches that want to be coaches, anyone to go to network and get to know and meet some of these guys.
Yeah. Well, the thing that was encouraging to me, they said that there were 800, we had 800 register online, which to me it shows it's thriving. The other thing it shows to me is the desire for coaches to connect to one another, see
Exactly.
one another. I think do you think that that's a good sign of the health of our profession?
That's where we need to get. I think we have lost a lot of that in the last 10 years. You look back 20 years ago, we knew a lot more of those guys than we know now. You never knew when you may need one, and it's absolutely amazing. You kind of say to yourself, "Well, I'm glad I met him," but I probably the last time I ever talked to him. And before you know it, either you got somebody that's wanting you to recommend them, or they're calling you about a guy from your area, or whatever. So, I really think that's one of the things that coaches have lost in the last few years, that hopefully something like that will get it back, and coaches realize the importance of we're all in this together, guys. And we don't have a lot of support out there. A lot of times our parents are against us with all this stuff going on in high school ball and all. You worry about some of your coaches, but we're all in this together, and we got to help each other when we can.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're really put out here to do, whether it's a kid, a parent, or a fellow coach.
Yeah. You're right, Coach. I was going to ask you how retirement's been, but you haven't retired. You've just sort of shifted your energy. I know you've been very, very busy, but I do want to know this. You know, you're you're the head coach on the sideline for, gosh, 36 years. And how many total years have you got? You told me, but what's your total years of coaching?
52.
52 years on
Wow.
the
Yeah.
sideline. What was it like that first Friday night, not being on the sideline? I'm saying, thinking about 36 years, you've been basically running a sideline, running a program. And then for 52 years, you've been on that sideline. And then when you think about your days as a player, uh,
Yeah.
over 6 decades of being a part of a team. Well, what was it like that first Friday night when it kicked off and that was not your place?
It was I'm not gonna say it was all great. It was very, very different. I wasn't even sure if I could handle even going to the game, and UMS was actually opening up with our big rival, St. Paul's, and I had some of my parents called me and said they wanted me to go and sit in the stands with them.
Hmm.
I said, "Oh, I don't know about that now." But I went with a couple people that I knew nobody was really going to bother them or whatever. So I sat in the stands at the first game. And guys, it was the first time in my 26 years at UMS that I'd ever watched a game of any kind from the stand.
Wow.
JV, middle school, BAA. I've always standing on the sidelines or in the end zone or whatever. So it makes you it makes you appreciate the cheerleaders, the band, and all the fans that are there to support what I really got a new outlook on what all goes into a Friday night other than us running on the field and being prepared to play a football game. So it ended up being okay. I guess I went to 5 or 6 games, and it got a little bit easier every time. The
Yeah.
thing I missed the most, Chris, to start with, was just the practices, the opening of practice, and those sort of things, and being around the kids. That was I went through kind of levels of emotions during that first year. Every time something new would start, fall practice, 7-on-7, then the season, then that first weekend was weird. Not going to work to prepare for the next one. Now I did watch most of the film and watch most of the practice tapes and all that sort of thing, but it was really different.
Wow. Well, they say that when you get ready to retire, there's two things I've learned. I learned this from my friend Jerry Hood that said, when you retire, as far as the parents and the fans go, your IQ, your coaching IQ automatically just goes up once you retire. And then the other thing I've heard is this, you don't retire don't retire from coaching, retire to something. And the thing that you've retired to is, to me, you're fighting this battle for high school football, and when Jerry and I started this podcast weeks ago, the state of the game, we had no idea that we would end up where we are. The state of our game would be where it is right now as we speak today, and, I mean, I can't even hardly, I mean, who would have thought it that we would be where we are and this would be high school football in the state of Alabama, right now. And, you were one of two dissenting votes. It was a 13-2 vote for us to restructure, our association. And what went into, like you're the president of the Central Board right now. You're the acting president. But what went into your no vote? That's what everybody's wanting to know. Why we had 13 that voted yes for the restructuring of it. And if it's that overwhelming, why did you vote no?
My thing has always been to do what's best for kids, what's best for our profession. And when you're sitting on that board, you're looking at yeah, you're a football coach, but you're also looking at all sports. And I've just always been of the whatever you want to call it, that we were all better together, playing each other. I know I was in a public school for 26 years. I was at Murphy High School and Shaw High School. I liked playing the private schools. Then when I got at a private school, I think it helped me because the guys knew I was going to do it right. And I thought it was important for our guys to go to Andalusia, to Thomasville, to Viger, to Williamson. I also felt it was important that those communities came to UMS Wright and see how we operate. And I just have always felt that we were better together. The competition was outstanding, and that's just kind of I knew when it got around to my vote that I wasn't going it wasn't going to be in my favor, but I still felt compelled to vote that way, and not necessarily because it was just a private school thing. I just have always felt both sides that it was better that we play together, and that was my my main reasoning. I know the ramifications, public and private. There's going to be some if this goes on and on and on, and and a lot of people who had not really said a whole lot, now they're wanting to get involved in all this. Where were they a year ago when we kind of knew? You could even tell. Hey, what has it been now? The multiplier has been in now for close to 30 years, and I was around when that came in. I understood the advantages that private schools had as far as resources and facilities, and could hire more coaches or whatever, and could kind of pick and choose who they took. I understood that, and went along with the multiplier. That was Mr. Washburn, and then 10 years later, here comes competitive balance. Now it became a little bit more difficult. But I can tell you guys, competitive balance, in my opinion, was working. It wasn't a deal that we had no answers and it was time to restructure. I felt like competitive balance was going to take care of a lot of our problems. If I felt like maybe even in the future that it could go to where everybody would be under competitive balance according to how you did. And I still think that would be a good thing. Now, will public schools ever vote for it? Probably not. But I do think it would be good for high school athletics. But that's kind of where I was. And then we got into, then all of a sudden here comes the Choose Act. I had no problem with the Choose Act. I really don't think the Choose Act is going to be that big a deal. In my opinion, the people who are going to use this Choose Act are kids who are already in that school. Therefore, if they've been there a year, they're eligible. So, and my whole thing was, guys, let's slow down. Let's let it go a couple of years, leave it like it is, see what happens, watch this, get some data. And if it is that big a problem, then let's try to solve it. We've always been able to solve it. But, the other board members felt like it was time, and I respect their vote. It was time to restructure, and that's kind of where we are. But that was my thought process behind all of it.
Coach, let me ask you a question real quick, if you don't mind, because we're unsure about this besides what we hear. What were the issues from both sides? What were the specific issues maybe that private schools were arguing on one side, and what were the challenges on the public school side? Can you expound on that just a little bit?
Well, it seems to me like, from the public side, it was more or less of the Choose Act, that private schools were going to get all the money, that they were going to start getting all these kids and swapping over, which, like I said before, it may be, but at least let us find it out. And on the private school, they were just kind of at a point where they were frustrated with, it was a multiplier, then it was competitive balance. Then here comes the Choose Act. It seemed like every time we started making progress, here came something else for them to throw at the private school. And I can understand their frustration with all of it. And, and this is kind of what led us to where we are now.
Would it have, if the Choose Act had never happened, Coach, would we have had the split, you think?
No.
I don't think so either.
No.
The Choose Act.
Y'all both win the transfer meetings and the classification meetings, which was talking about competitive balance and some reforms to it and all. And I thought those first two meetings of both sides, and Chris and you and Jerry both know, they were very, very positive meetings from both sides. And I think we were going to make some progress. And all of a sudden, when the misunderstanding from the Choose Act got started, everything just stopped. Nobody wanted to talk about anything else. You couldn't even get them to talk about transfers or competitive balance or the multiplier. every time you get in one of them meetings, all they want to talk about was CHUSAC this, CHUSAC that, time to do this. We're not going to put up with that, whatever it was.
Yeah, Mr. Harmon was talking about some of the issues with the CHUSAC too. We had a change in executive directors of the timing of that and rolling out the CHUSAC that he said that contributed a little bit too to the misunderstanding of exactly how that thing should be implemented too. Were you in on any of those conversations?
Exactly. It should have never got to this point. We would have solved it, got it right, whatever. I think it was 24 or whatever. We got a memo from some people that told the board, said don't worry, really to the fact, I don't know the exact words, but don't worry about it. The CHUSAC rules are going to be the same as the accountability rules.
Was that from
So
was that from politicians or was that from the association? Where did that memo come from?
that was from the association. Just
Gotcha.
said everything that he had met with them, and I mean this goes back even to Alvin and all,
Yeah.
and so we never even discussed it again till we get to what, September. I mean, we played a couple of football games,
Yeah. September the 4th.
and then it got started, and you go, what? And so then, we have our process and bylaws, and we just can't change a rule, which came down to whether it was financial aid or not. Uh, there's no doubt that board was going to make it right and they wasn't going to break the law, but we didn't have that authority to do that. We needed to get to this time of the year, and that will be changed, and it will be. I have full confidence that it will be. But that's kind of the whole thing, guys, was just a miscommunication, misunderstanding, and if it had been back in 24 during the summer, there's no doubt in my mind that Alvin and the people in charge then would have handled it. But somebody told them, and then there was a video that got out that y'all probably saw, which they all but the legislature all but said it was no difference, and
Said it was the same as the Accountability Act. That's all, in the word rules was left out. And that's
exactly.
Yeah.
And that one rule, that one word ended up being a big word, talking about rules. So, it is, I can see the legislative side, I can see where they're coming from, and I can really see our side. So,
Well, Coach, I do agree with you that it would have been super wise to see where the CHUSAC actually was used, and so far the data is showing that really those taking advantage of it are really already in a favorable position financially. So it's not being as beneficial to those that probably it was meant for as it should be. I have a question about this. I know you were sitting on the stage when Coach Harmon introduced what we were going to do with classifications and regions, and he says by separation, this solves our financial aid problem. Now, my question to you, being on both sides, a public and a private school coach, one point, those public schools that are participating, does that really solve that problem?
that's a good question. I was listening to most of that. I think he was probably referring to, the private schools with the financial aid, with the CHUSAC, and with financial aid, whatever. But you guys know, y'all been in this a long time. The financial rules been around. I mean, it didn't just come in last year. It's been around a long, long time where, if you did this, that, the other, you were ineligible for a year if you got financial aid. And everybody knew that. And that's where I think the miscommunication came in, because people, even some private schools were using some CHUSAC money, from what I hear, and still telling the kids you're still ineligible for a year because they knew what the rule was. I think that's what got it started. And you had a few schools also talking about independent schools that that wanted to use the money and the kids be eligible. And I think that's where it got started and got the legislature and exactly them found out exactly what what they meant.
Do we still have a temporary restraining order and arbitration still in effect as it was before reclassification, or did this neutralize that? I mean, where are we now with all that?
As far as I know, Chris, it's still in effect. Okay. Because we have not actually it has to come up in a proposal. We have not actually changed changed the wording or the rule or ever how you want to say it at this time. That will be done at the I guess it'll be the April board meeting.
How did the when we were doing the Choose Act, so what's crazy about it is all three of us were in that transfer task force meeting. I guess was it June or late June, July? I guess it was July. And that's sort of front center. Mr. Harmon talked about when he did his went to the different district meetings when he was first hired. He said the non-compliant transfer was the biggest issue, and then all of a sudden September 4th, all heck breaks loose, and now it's Choose Act. So my question was this is what, when you start drawing a timeline, September 4th was a big time because that's when, you had our governor and then the association back and forth. But this is what I still don't have a clear understanding of is how did the enrollment multiplier and the competitive balance get included in this discussion about the Choose Act? All of a sudden, all these things just got piled on top of the Choose Act discussion. Do you have any idea how that happened, Coach?
No, I sure don't. I just know that, what people don't still realize, even with the Choose Act, the other rules stayed in place, guys. And I don't think people understood that. The bona fide move, in order to use that money and be eligible, you still had to make a bona fide move. Overlapping school zones was still in effect. So therefore, if you were in a city like Mobile and like UMS Wright, we're here in our district is the city limits. We probably have 7 other schools who have districts within the city limits. So we have a lot of overlapping school zones. Those rules still apply. If you were in an overlapping school zone and you took Choose Act money, you were still ineligible. The only thing that was affecting why it was talked about so much was the thing that wasn't going to be included with financial aid. And it just kind of blew everybody's minds and people got to talking, the public got to talking, all the people who really didn't understand the Choose Act got to talking. And I think there's a lot of people out there who still don't understand the Choose Act and what it's doing and how it's doing it and so forth. So, there's just a lot of people talking out there, and some know a little bit about it and some don't know anything about it.
Jerry and I have discussed on here, and it's our understanding that if you were a public school, you took Choose Act funds, then number one, you had to be a participant. And the only way that you're eligible for Choose Act funds for tuition is the student must live outside of the school zone to be eligible for those funds. Well, to be eligible, you got to make a bona fide move, which now you're not eligible for Choose Act funds. And so, there's just, it sort of contradicts, but, contradicts.
It does. And it's confusing when you start, one say this and they mean what they're saying is right, but they're saying it in a whole different way than what you're saying it. So everybody goes, no, that ain't right. Well, I'm saying the same thing you're saying, basically,
The thing that it does for for public schools to me is there's a potential there, moving forward. Like when we think about, okay, this is what happened moving, where do we go from here? The thing that I'm wondering about if the Choose Act, the Choose Act being in effect now as far as public schools, okay, you can live out of zone take CHUSAC money and now play sub varsity, which
Right.
created an incredible incentive for schools, number one, to participate, and number two, to get the out of district student in there, because now you not only get your average daily membership funds, but you could get CHUSAC funds for tuition. So,
Yeah.
or do you see any, like, going down that road, because you've coached in public and private? Do you see any issues that we could be facing that we may have created? And it's not going to show up this August. It's probably not even going to show up next August. But somebody that figures this thing out and says, okay, we're going to create a system to take advantage of both down the road. Do you see any issues moving forward?
Yeah. And I think y'all do too. I can see, the city schools using it. When that's mainly the ones that, yeah, in district, they've got to take who lives in their district. But out of district, they don't have to take those kids either. And now with this CHUSAC, they're going to take that and get that money. And I don't know. I think some of them are even changing their how much it costs to come in. I think it used to be usually 1,500, 2,000. I think some of them now, because of what this is doing, are charging them about what that CHUSAC would be to get them into to come into their schools. And you got a lot of them that are going to use that. And you guys know coaches like I do. I've always been one pretty much speak the truth. They're going to figure this out and use it to their benefit. And I'm not saying break rules or break laws or anything else, but they're going to use this in any way that would benefit them and their school, which I guess you can't blame them.
Yeah. You mentioned something a second ago, Coach, when you walked in that room, and you said, I think I heard you say that, you knew that the vote was not going to go your way. How'd you know that? I mean, were y'all having discussions up to that point, or, I mean, how were you aware of that?
Well, just once we started the process and all, I mean, we were in a work session, and I don't know. I don't think anybody knew in there what to expect or how it was going to come down, and what everybody. I don't think anybody on that board knew really what everybody else was thinking. Everybody had their own thoughts and from their own district and so forth. But once the conversation got started and you started looking at a plan, and you could kind of tell whether people liked this or didn't like it or so forth. So it was just kind of a feeling you got pretty much when you got in there.
I felt like, that the coaches and the coaching community, and I know at the larger classifications, I felt like there was what you said a minute ago about, look, let's pump the brakes. Let's take this next year to collect information, collect numbers and stuff, and then let's see where the problem is. So talk a little bit about what your thoughts were on how were we going to collect, what would we collect and how were we going to collect that? What were you thinking there?
Well, I think, when it first started, I think most of the private schools knew what was getting ready to happen. And the ones that I talked to from their side, they were willing to just slow down, leave it like it was for 2 years. Not change anything as far as the multiplier, competitive balance, the things that were there. They didn't have any say so over what happened with the CHUSAC, but they were willing to keep everything the same. And that's when my thing became, let's just do this and slow this down. And if there is any data, which you're going to see, they're going to know how many took the CHUSAC money, whether they were first-time students, whether they were already in the schools, and whether it going to how many public schools were using it, how many private schools or independent schools were using it. And I just thought to do that, but to their thing, and heck, guys, they may be right. I may be wrong. I'm just telling y'all my opinion. They felt it was the time, with all that was going on, to try this restructuring. That don't mean in 2 years it could change back, or the independent schools could decide another route or whatever. There's so many people involved in it now. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but it kind of is where it is, and I don't see a whole lot of it changing for the time being.
Do you, Coach Curtis, do you get the feeling as you talk to administrators, coaches in private schools and public schools that the majority of this is what I'm getting? The majority of private school people I talk to feel just like we do in public school, or the people that I associate with, I guess you'd say. We were definitely better together and looking forward to maybe a time that we can get this thing back reconnected.
It's just going to take, I think, getting the right people in the room that are not looking at just their specific situation, but are looking at what's better for the state of Alabama. And that, I've been all over this country at conventions and meetings and so forth. And I do know, and had a lot to do with what I thought, was that none of these states who have restructured, separated, whatever you want to call it, all of them are having problems. None of them has it been hunky dory, everything just, oh man, we just love the system. It's working just great. None of them are feel that way. And in some ways, you don't like to use watered down, but you see it watering down somewhat the competition on both sides. And I also hope it don't happen. But if this thing keeps going and keeps going, then you're going to see an animosity between public and independent schools, coaches, and everyone else. As far as I can see that happening as we go along with this, and I just hope coaches will stick together and listen to both people's sides and that something can be worked out. And I do believe something can be worked out if you get the right people in the room who are willing to look at what's better for this state and look at all the factors and come up with a plan that'll work for both sides. That's my hope and prayer. Now it'll be, probably after I'm out, but I will always be paying attention to this.
You said that you've gone to the national convention, you've talked to people from other states. I mean, golly, you say that everybody's got this problem. Have you seen in other states like anything that's unique and you say, you know what, that's a good plan, that's making headway, that's affecting everything? Anything there, Coach?
Well, you go and you listen they're getting a listen and you kind of perk up because some of the stuff they're saying is good. And then they'll say a couple of things and all of a sudden they'll say, but,
Mm-hmm.
but, and then they start giving you all this other side of the story. And you go, grief, that's about what I figured, so forth. But, I've been, talked to Louisiana on several occasions and Lord, they've probably through the years tried more plans than any other state. They've tried putting the private schools, all of them in the public, but putting them in the lowest classification where they had no competition. They've tried putting them in the top classification. They got a little plan now that they think may be the best one yet, where they're kind of rating them in different ones. So, there's just got to be something out there that it's just going to take time and it's going to take meeting. It's going to take somebody who wants to spend the time doing it to make it happen. It's not going to happen in one or two meetings.
One thing I thought was unique over the last year, we started the transfer task force. I had some guys from Georgia reach out. But the thing that they come up with a one-time transfer rule. They came up with a thing where if you transfer, everybody in the family's got to have a driver's license change. I mean, those guys to me seem like they're dead serious. I mean, about getting a grip on this thing because they're not just sitting there waiting to see what happens. To me, I mean, it seems to me like from the things I've heard, and you've got a better perspective than I do, but that they may have done some more bold things than most people have.
Well, I was in, where was I? I forget where we met. I guess our last meeting this past summer, and just in some of those roundtables, without a doubt, the number one problem in all these states are transfers. Every one of them, not public, private, nothing else. It's the transfers, and everybody is listening to everybody, trying to get a hold on it. And I even told them in one of those meetings that I felt like, with what we had with competitive balance, had a possibility of helping stop transfers if you put everybody under competitive balance. Now, if they wanted to go and load up a team and whatever, hopefully they're going to win if they do that. And by competitive balance, they're going to move up a class. And sooner or later, they're going to be up there and playing with the big boys. And you're going to have to keep on doing it. But, somewhat take care of it, because everybody's having the same problem with transfers. And talking with Craig over in Georgia, I said, how did y'all get that passed? They said, well, we had a couple legislatures that agreed with us and helped us get it through. Now, whether it'll hold up, and I think, guys, that's something that worries people too now. If somebody don't get their way, whether it's NCAA, high school, or what, they're going to sue somebody. And the thing is getting it to hold up, in court with that kind of thing, a one-time transfer. And I think you guys agree, if you make a transfer and you do it the right way, you go through the proper process, you make a bona fide move, your whole family moves, strictly because you want to go to Mountain Brook or Leeds instead of the other one, that's fine and good. But another big problem we got around here are these third parties and people pushing kids one way or the other. That's definitely out there, because you're seeing some of these guys in these certain places going to wherever. But that's a whole conversation for another day. And it's just a lot going on right now that it's trickled down, which it always does, from the NCAA and it's coming down to high school.
Go ahead.
I was just going to tag on to that. He answered, that we did get all off the rails there with the Choose Act and all that. And I never felt like that was going to be the most major issue. Our major issue is non-compliant transfers. Do you have this sense, or the words coming from some things you would know on the Central Board of Control, of people even utilizing, coaches even utilizing the AHSAA's own system to justify transfers before they allow them in? In other words, is there a process where I could call the HSAA and say, I need someone down here to verify this living arrangement and so forth? And secondly, is there an inherent problem with that after the investigator leaves?
Well, I think one of the main things that worries coaches now is they go and the investigator leaves and everything is fine, so you forget about it, and then 2 or 3 months you get a phone call or something that person has moved back, or some of the family moved back to where they were, and yet it's put back on you. And as coaches and ADs and principals and administrators, you got way more to do than go run into a house every 2 or 3 weeks to make sure that person is doing what they needed to do. And I think that's what runs into it a whole lot. But to answer your question, Jerry, there's a bunch of we have several. I think we've got 5 or 6 investigators now, and that's always been my contention. Is these guys, and I've said it in board meetings use these guys, send them out just to check and be transparent with it. I think a lot of people think there's, or I've heard here recently that there's way too much secrecy with the Alabama High School Athletic Association, that people don't know what's going on. They'll call and complain about something and never hear anything back, and we've got to be transparent. In other words, if you turned or not turn in, but say, would you go check this guy who transferred so-and-so? Okay, they go check it. They do a thorough check, the investigator, whoever they send, and then you ought to get a reply telling you they went and everything was fine. And you got to forget about it then. They went and did their job and come out and tell everybody that the kid is eligible and go with it. I don't think enough of this is happening, and nor has happened in the past with some of these situations where people know if there was even an investigation even done.
That is true.
And even checked,
Yeah, that is true.
about some of these. I've always been of the thing, and I never will understand it, guys. It blows my mind that a senior who had been at UMS Wright since kindergarten would get to be a senior, and then they would transfer schools for their senior year. I've been to 10-year reunions, 20-year reunions, 30-year reunions, and I know how important it is for you to play and finish your career with your friends. Now, if you did it in the ninth grade or eighth grade for some reason, okay. But these seniors that are leaving their school and going to another school, and a lot of them, it's not to get recruited. A lot of them already got a bunch of offers, and they're going. And I just I have a hard time with that.
Coach, you had talked a little while ago about collecting data, and one of the things that had talked about, you talk about, let's get the numbers from the Choose Act and let's just see how many people are using this, how many athletes are using this. We talked about this in the summer, and it was our number one initiative. I mean, everybody in that meeting talked about this. Do you think in this conversation that we've just gone through, as far as is this problem exclusively a private school problem, or is it across the board? Do you think that if we had from this past year numbers from the Dragonfly proposal that became a bylaw, would that have helped this discussion any at all had we had those numbers?
Well, I think it goes back. I'm not sure it would have. And I say that because I think as soon as people got an idea of what the Choose Act was, they immediately thought it was a independent private school problem. That's where they were all going. I don't think people ever even thought about being used by public schools. I don't think that was, and I think until people, and that's why I'm saying, until people understood exactly what the Choose Act was for and who it was going to and who could use it, I think to start with, and got everybody in an uproar, was strictly, this is a private school deal. They're doing this strictly for kids to go to private schools, and I think everything else was dropped, not thought about, or they didn't know about it.
Gotcha. I got one last thing, Jerry, and I'll let you finish this up. But you're talking about transparency a minute ago. I know that we've all seen C-SPAN where they broadcast, what goes on in Congress. Would it be too much of a stretch to broadcast a central board meeting and let everybody know? Like, to me, shining the light on anything and knowing brings confidence, and it brings trust. It brings respect for what you guys go through. The last time, I remember in one of the task force meetings we had, somebody brought that up, and I thought, you know what, I've never thought about that. And they said if they can do it on C-SPAN, we should be able to do it. But what would you think about that? Just the transparency of, and knowing how our people are voting. Are they representing us when we call them? Are they representing us?
I probably have heard, guys, more than ever since all this stuff has started, is people saying, whether it's coaches, administrators, superintendents, legislators, whoever, we don't know who to trust.
Wow.
We're hearing one thing here, and yet on the other side, they're saying something entirely different. Who's telling the truth? Is it somewhere in the middle? Is it this guy? Is it that guy? Is it Coach Curtis, or is it so and so? I think we've gotten to a point now with he said, she said, whatever. I was in a meeting the other day, and somebody says, no, I have not talked to him. And I had talked to that person, and they told me they had talked to him. I'm going, now, who am I supposed to believe here? He said he hadn't talked to him, and he said he had talked to him. And I think, back to what you said, Chris, as far as transparency and all, I don't know about the other board members, and like I'm saying, all this here is just strictly my opinion about stuff. Is there needs to be more transparency. I think we've lost some of that trust, whether it's with the myself, the board, the executive director, and also on the other side, in some of the things that are coming from from them. And you can't operate that way, man. If you can't trust somebody, it's hard to get behind them and push for anything. So, I agree. I've never thought about it either, but I don't think it would be that hard to do. Now, I wouldn't mind it, but I'm just speaking for myself.
Sure.
As far as what goes on.
You think, Coach? I had a coach talk to me this morning. And he was very frustrated with the younger coaches, and he's a young coach. But he was asking, what's the proper thing to do in these situations? Do you think that our next generation of coaches, I always felt like I was in the generation behind you guys, and now I've grown up enough that there's a generation behind me. Do you think they really understand the closeness that we learn from you guys and the respect between programs and schools? And is there a need for protocol training as far as what do you do if a kid comes to your school, or what processes need to go in that? Do we have a need for that in Alabama?
You better believe it. You better believe we do. It's gotten, I see these young guys now. They don't want to, and I'm not talking about all of them, but for the most part, they don't want to pay their dues. Is the word I use. They want a title. They want to be the OC or the DC or the head weight room guy or the HC. And some of these guys are getting these jobs way too early. I was an assistant for 16 years. And that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And I mean, some of these, and I've made a thing of mine these last 10 or 15 years to talk to young guys. And I don't think I've turned down speaking at a convention or a clinic. And I always mention young coaches and how important they are, and not to get in a hurry, and loyalty to you, to your head coach. I listen to some of them standing around talking about their own head coach, and I want to go over and tell them, say, look, man, if you can't be loyal to your head coach, you need to go find you another job, because right now he's the head guy, and that word's going to get out. And, but to answer your question, definitely there needs to be more mentorship, more put on young coaches. I don't know how many of them would come, but I really think they're starved for that. I think they would show. I really think they would love to have something, even professionalism. How do you dress at a convention? When do you wear a hat? You don't wear a hat. When do you put on long pants and not shorts? When do you wear a collared shirt instead of a T-shirt? This game now has gotten, it's a lot about more than X and O's. A lot of people know X and O's, But the ones who are winning and the ones who are running their programs right run the whole program from their parents to their players to the administration to the teachers to the cheerleaders to the band to everyone involved in that program.
I never will forget, yeah, our very good friend and this, I mean, amazing human being, Jimmy Perry. When I guess I was 28 years old, I went to something he had, and he gave out shoe shine little buffer deals and went on to talk about what we represent, the way we look, the way we carry ourselves. And then, of course, he talked about the program. I think like you, coach, and it needs to be someone like you guys doing this. I think the young coaches would just flock to something like that in the right settings to get all of their questions answered. This coach was just baffled. He said, when do you contact the other coach if you just hear rumors of something, or how do you go if someone from another school comes into your office? And I remember the day what you guys taught me was if I even wanted to talk to a coach at UMS Wright, the first person you called was Terry Curtis to ask permission to talk, or at least alert him. Hey,
Exactly.
I've got this opening. I'm interested in your guy. I hope you would maybe consider that on the various boards that you're on, or and considering even leading it, because you've got a lot left to give us, and we need it, coach.
Well, but Jimmy Perry was unbelievable with that, and he was the epitome of class. There's a time to wear a tie. There's time you can wear a sport coat. Going to something or doing something, but you're right. Just calling a coach, or everybody asks me all the time, say, well, what should I do? I say, call that coach. Anytime I thought someone was doing something wrong, I would call. I'd say, Jerry, I'm calling you about such and such. I have heard this. I don't know. Or if I did know, I'd tell you, say, look, I know this kid's out of district. I know this kid's not eligible. You check it out. If you don't, I'm going to turn you in. But I would call that, I never just turn somebody in or anything without calling that coach and giving him a chance to check it out. And a couple of times they called me back and said, Terry, I know what you're saying. I know it looks like that, but here's the deal. I said, that's all I want to know. Thank you. But
Yeah.
you got to do those things, man. All these rumors out there, people are talking about everybody. Call them up if you've got a problem with somebody. Tell them what you don't like about what they're doing, and that you're going to make sure it gets checked out or whatever. Even with some of these transfers, I told one just yesterday. I said, call them up, tell them what you got, and if they don't do anything, then report it. But then you hear, well, I ain't gonna do that. And and another bad thing that we've gotten to in our society is if you do turn someone in, it's like you're the bad guy. So nobody will turn anybody in because now they're the bad, you're the bad guy. Why are you turning me in for something, this, that, and the other, and they don't know the circumstance or anything else. So, or they say, the other thing I get is, I'm not going to turn them in because I know nothing's going to be done.
Yeah. I had a coach that he was in it 44 years at one school, now in the Hall of Fame. And he told me the one time he turned someone in, by the time it was over, he felt like he was the perpetrator, that he took so much heat from it.
Yeah.
But I want to shift gears to something a little more meaningful, especially for me, because I don't know how I ended up there, but I was there. And then I talked to you last year at a Troy coaching clinic, and I just wanted to tell you face to face, personally, thank you for all you meant to us in ways you don't even understand. And you said to me, you said, well, Jerry, I love coaches. And that passion that you have for bringing all of us up was just incredible. And I got to see the culmination of that this past Saturday. One of my mentors and now assistant coaches got a Lifetime Achievement Award, as did you. How did that feel to watch your career on that screen go by? I saw pictures of you as a young, dashing, great looking guy. What an incredible moment that was for them to honor you guys.
It was, I'm sure Curtis and Danny felt the same way. But to me, it was just very humbling. And sitting there watching that, the thing that was going through my mind more than anything at each one of those coaching stops was, number one, my coaches that were involved with it, and then the players that had been there, and then some of the people who became lifelong friends from those places. And they're kind of replaying that. And it really, toward the end, got emotional just from, all the coaches, not outside, but that actually coached with you and for you, and where they are now as head coaches and administrators and everything else, and just the journey of it all. And then to have that honor, being done by your peers, is way more important to me than getting anything from a group of people or whatever. When you get something from the people you've been around, that you've got all the respect and trust and all in the world, it was just it was an emotional, humbling, very satisfying, because I feel like my whole career I have done it the right way. I've never been accused of doing anything that wasn't above board, and I've tried to be above board and tried to be honest about it. And it was probably one of the top award I've ever received.
Well, I was man, it was so awesome. And I was thinking about all the things that how we've interacted over the years in various ways at different times, and sometimes good length of times between it. But you're just a special guy, and you're a great example of those of us that have never told you that. And I hope you continue to stay involved, because we need your leadership in just an unbelievable way.
Well, you and Chris are perfect examples. Y'all have never lived in Mobile. Y'all have always been up in the Birmingham area. You even got out one time on us for a few years and got back in it. And Chris has been from all over Dora, all over the place. Never really a reason for us to, other than, just clinics and conventions. And yet I consider y'all close friends. And y'all all the way, 3.5 hours away from me. And that means more to me. And I go all the way to Huntsville and start naming you people. That is what the blessing to me in this profession has been, is I've got coaching friends throughout this state from one end to the other. And I don't think I think there's a lot of coaches out there who don't have that. If I was looking for a coach, I'd call Jerry Adcock and ask him, do you know anybody who may want to come to Mobile? He said, well, everybody wants to come to Mobile. I said, well, I'm looking for this, that, the other. Heck, I hired Phil Lazenby from Benjamin Russell. I'd only known Phil for a couple of years and stuff like that. But I just coaches, I know I've done my whole career, and it flew by, because I knew I was doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do. My daddy was a Baptist preacher, and I feel like I did the same calling as he did and touched the lives just like he did through coaching.
Absolutely. That explains your great love of Southern gospel music. So now I know where that comes from. And
where did you hear that, man?
Well, Well, I've heard it a bunch of places, but the main thing, my dad sang Southern gospel music for a long time, and I got wind that you liked it. And we had a conversation about it one time, and I promised you, I think it was maybe 15 years ago, that I was going to send you a copy of the CDs that they made, all back in the 70s and 80s. So at least I owe it to you, and I had not sent it because I'm beating you out of it. I'm still going to send that to you.
Hey, man, I love it. I tell you, let me tell you one quick story. I was somewhere at a convention, and I just met Marty Roselle.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sitting there talking, and we're talking about this, and I don't know how we got on it. And we got to talking, and he said, yeah, I've got a lot of experience in Southern gospel. And I got to thinking, I said,
Rosie.
don't tell me your daddy was Rosie Roselle. Same with the cathedral and all. Oh, what a savior. He said, yeah. And man, he got to sending me CDs and the actual funeral thing
Right.
and all those things. And man, I said, look, what a small world we're in.
Yeah. And you know, that all that kind of stuff, we all have those connections, and we get to do it with a common mission of trying to make a difference with kids and all those kind of things. And I'll tell you this, as we continue on down this road, it's good to look back and say, what a well-lived life, buddy.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of people go to work every day, can't stand it. Don't you think? I don't care. Lawyers, doctors, bankers hate going to work every day because they're not doing what they love. I can't say that.
You know, a lot of them will say to me, "I wish I'd have been a coach." And then I start telling them about other things. They say, "Well, maybe not."
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Watch out. Yeah, watch out.
Coach,
Don't because the hours are no different.
the
You know.
hours are long. Well, Coach, it's been a joy to have you, and appreciate your perspective on everything, Coach Yeager.
Well, the thing I want to say, Coach, incredibly insightful today. You know, like we've always wondered what went on behind those closed doors, and you've opened up you've shown a lot of light in it today, and it's very, very helpful. If there was more of this, I think there probably would be, like you said, there'd be more trust and respect. But 52 years in this profession, given to coaches, given to players, man, thank you is not enough, Coach. I mean, you're the man. You truly are, a legend, and we do appreciate.
Thank you guys, and anytime you need anything, you know where to call. And I do think, long as I've been on that board with the executive directors that I've been under, and also the board, they do have the kids' best interest at heart. I think they catch way too much of the blame for a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot of blame to go around. But I just think it's something that trust, transparency, being upfront, getting and doing the things you need. There's some things they don't need to know, but I've really enjoyed serving on this board and the people I've served with, and I just hope we can get this thing straightened out, guys.
Well, Coach, one last question. Are you going to continue to serve in HSAA role, either from the member school perspective or in any other role? Do you have any idea of that right now?
Well, no, I'm still a full-time employee working in advancement and helping with athletics a little bit here at UMS Wright, and I will roll off July the 1st as the president. It's also my year to come up for re-election. And, if I had to guess right now, I will probably roll off that board in July.
Well, maybe we need to write a proposal to keep Terry Curtis on the Central Board of Control, because you are an asset to all us coaches, and we appreciate you, Coach.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.